Hello there, Slamscape here. Today, I'm excited to show you a Cobra Mk5 combat build that doesn't need a single piece of engineering. Now, if you haven't flown the Cobra Mk5 yet, you're missing out. This little powerhouse is fast, nimble, and can hit harder than you'd expect for a small ship. Plus, with the ability to pick it up using arcs, it's the perfect starting point for anyone looking to jump into the world of bounty hunting. So let's break down why the Cobra Mk5 is such a solid choice for your entry-level combat setup. The Cobra Mk5 is an amazing small ship for combat. It has a lot going for it even without engineering upgrades. If you've ever flown the other Cobra variants, the Mark III and the Mark IV, you know they have terrible yaw, which makes them awkward to fly. The Mk5 corrected that problem. It has great turning and maneuverability. The Mk5 has powerful thrusters, allowing it to cruise at 310 meters per second and boost to 440 meters per second. It has a large number of optional module slots, which allow for a good amount of hull reinforcements to boost the strength of your armor to around 1400. The Cobra Mk5 is also well armed, sporting 3 medium and 2 small weapon hardpoints. The build is also relatively affordable, coming in at about 10.2 million credits total. The only real disadvantage of the Cobra Mk5 is that the power plant can struggle a bit to run everything, and its shields are a bit weak, although they are still strong for a small ship. We'll take a look at the core, optional, and utility modules, then go over some possible weapon loadouts. The core internals are where the necessary equipment to run the ship is located, like the power plant, thrusters, life support, etc. For the armor, I would suggest running reinforced alloy. It's a good mix of improving total armor without adding too much weight. If you feel like you are dying too easily, you can upgrade it to military grade armor for another 1 million credits. Next, I run a 4A power plant, which is the largest, best power plant we can fit. We need all the power we can get in order to run the weapons, shields, and utilities. It will still require us to do some module power management, which I will explain in more detail later. We run 4A thrusters to give us maneuverability and a cruise speed of 312 meters per second and a boost of up to 440 meters per second. For our frameshift drive, I would suggest running a 4A SCO enabled drive. This will allow the ship to jump about 21 light years per jump and about 107 total light years per full fuel tank. It will also give us access to the Super Cruise overcharge mode, which is optimized for the Cobra Mk5 and lets us travel through Super Cruise much faster than the older versions. Next, we run 3D life support, which gives us 7.5 minutes of oxygen if our canopy blows, but is lightweight enough to keep our speed up. For the power distributor, we run a 4A, which is the best we can fit. We'll need that to power our 3 medium and 2 small weapons. The only other small ships that can run that big of a power distributor are the Diamondback Explorer and the Vulture, which runs a class 5. For sensors, I run with a 3D. This limits our scan range a bit, but it helps with our weight, and the lower power usage helps with our power plant issues. This setup of mostly A-graded modules and D-rated for the life support and sensors is pretty standard for most unengineered ship builds. The optional internals are where things like shields, cargo, and extra hull reinforcements are located. In our first and largest slot, I recommend fitting a 5C bi-weaved shield generator. I prefer bi-weaved shield generators for small ships because small ships tend to have a lower shield multiplier and don't get as much benefit from running an A-rated shield generator. Also, the A-rated shield requires more power, which this build does not really have in abundance. Bi-weaves also have a much faster regeneration rate, and if knocked out completely, will turn back on about a minute faster than A-rated shields. For the next, size 2-4 module spots, I fit them with 4D hull reinforcements. Those, combined with our reinforced alloy armor and another size 3 hull reinforcement, will give us about 1300 total hull armor. This will help us weather attacks when our shields go down and keep us in the fight longer. Next up, I put in a 4B shield cell bank. Shield cell banks are used to quickly regenerate your shields in a fight, although they only have 5 charges, so I try to use them sparingly. Each bank usage will refill about half our shields. You can assign them to a fire group to use them, but there is also a dedicated keybind that you can set up for easier usage. In the first size 3 slot, we put in another D hull reinforcement. D-class reinforcements are generally better than the E-class versions, as they weigh less and add more hull. In the next size 3 slot, I put in a 3B fuel scoop. This lets us refuel our ship from certain classes of stars, A, B, F, G, K, M, and O. This build of the Cobra Mk5 has a jump range of about 21 light years and a total range of 107 light years, so I like to have a fuel scoop to cut down on having to land at stations and outposts to refuel. If you don't find this to be a problem, you can always fit this slot with another hull reinforcement. For the final size 3 slot, I put in a 3D module reinforcement. I see many builds opting not to put module reinforcements in and just relying on shields. But on small ships, your shields will go down, and when they do, module reinforcements not only absorb damage that would go directly to your internal modules, like thrusters, weapons, and shields, they also reduce the percentage of damage those attacks would do to said modules. This helps you stay in the fight longer, and keeps your modules healthier and less likely to start malfunctioning. In the size 2 slot, I put in a 2D module reinforcement. This gets our module damage reduction to 84%. In the final size 1 slot, I put in a frameshift drive interdictor. This module lets you pull ships out of supercruise and is useful if you're bounty hunting in a system without the usual bounty hunting hotspots, like resource extraction sites or megaships. The utility mounts are where scanners, defensive countermeasures, and shield boosters are equipped. There is definitely wiggle room on what to outfit here depending on your playstyle, but I'll share what I think works best for a bounty hunter build. For the first slot, I mount a 0D kill warrant scanner. One isn't necessary for bounty hunting, but it does help increase bounty payouts. When you destroy a wanted target, the payout is reflective of their bounty in the current system. The kill warrant scanner adds on any bounties your target may have in other systems. I usually assign the scanner to my laser fire group so that you can scan your target while taking down their shields. For the next utility slot, I use a point defense system. It's useful for defending against missiles, which do a lot of module damage if your shields go down. The next slot, I mount a heatsink launcher. They are used to temporarily reduce a ship's heat levels. When activated, all of a ship's internally stored heat is rapidly transferred into a heatsink, and then the heatsink itself is ejected from the ship. They are useful when activating your shield cell banks, as they generate a lot of heat as your shields quickly recharge. For the last utility slot mount, I fit in an A-rated shield booster. The A-rated booster adds a 20% increase to your base shield's strength. It's not a huge boost on the Cobra, but it will get us to about 268 raw shield strength and 670 with full pips to systems. Now that we've established the base of our bounty hunting build, it's time to take a look at weapon loadouts. While the Cobra is able to fit 3 medium weapons and 2 smalls, we are a bit limited by our power plant and the power distributor. After some experimentation and testing, I think the best overall setup for a new commander is 2 small gimbaled pulse lasers and 3 medium gimbaled multi-cannons. This combination of weapons are the bread and butter of most beginner builds. The damage per second isn't as high as some of the harder to use weapons, but they are a reliable source of steady damage. The gimbals give our weapons a larger field of fire, which lets us focus more on maneuvering and less on aiming. Multi-cannons also have a good amount of ammunition, so you can bounty hunt for a long time. You use your pulse lasers to knock down your target's shields, and the multi-cannons to destroy the hull. For bigger targets, you will need to maintain continuous fire of all weapons, although bigger targets are something you shouldn't go after until you are more comfortable with combat. Another similar loadout with more burst potential is again 2 small pulse lasers with 3 frag cannons in the medium spots. The frags output a lot of damage in a quick amount of time but have a long reload. You will need to fly in a more of a hit and run manner. A fun loadout you can try once you have a bit more experience is running 1 medium railgun paired with 2 medium multi-cannons and 2 small multi-cannons. Railguns do a mix of thermal and kinetic damage and hit pretty hard for their size, although they can be more difficult to use. When you pull the trigger, there's a delay before their fire, so it requires anticipating and tracking your target's motion. Now that we have our Cobra Mk5 fully outfitted, you will probably run into this problem. You find your target, you deploy your weapons, and oops, everything shuts down. Our Cobra has too much equipment but not enough power. This is where power priorities come into play. In order to utilize power priorities, check our right side panel under modules. If you look on the far right, you will see a tab called priority. What this does is let the commander set which modules are more important than others. This is necessary for this build since we have too much power drain but not enough power. Priority 1 is the highest and 5 is the lowest. The ship will shut down each priority sequentially until there is enough power to run what's left. So, what we need to do is set things we don't need to use in combat to a lower priority. In the case of this build, this is the frameshift drive interdictor and fuel scoop, both of which only work in Super Cruise, as well as the cargo hatch, which we don't need as we have no cargo space. You will get a message that you don't have enough power when you deploy your weapons, but a quick check shows all the equipment we need is working. Many commanders use this technique, even with engineering, to push their ships past what it should be capable of. Alright. That wraps up our look at the Cobra Mk5 combat build. It's a solid, budget-friendly option for anyone jumping into bounty hunting or just looking for a fun, nimble ship that can hold its own in a fight. Even without engineering, this ship punches above its weight, and with the right setup, it can keep you in the fight longer and let you run rings around your targets. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future builds and tips. Thank you for watching.